Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the EveryMan on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. Send us your questions and comments, dj@ArtistFirst.com. Here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, D-Man, and I am Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
Hey, no, this is not really germane, but my voice sounds not too bad tonight.
Hey.
It may not last.
Oh,
but,
dear.
Let's just go with what we got right now. And I'm in fine form, which is so awesome because that's the kind of almost the topic tonight, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Our topic tonight is form, and this is not the form that you have when you take a half gainer off the high dive, although it could be. But this is form in general, and it's really using the term in the sense that, that Tolle does, but really that all things, and these forms are physical forms, of course, but they're also emotional forms. He calls the pain body as a sort of a form. They're also mental forms. They're constructs. They're concepts. There are bodies. They're everything around us. And the one unique thing, or one of the unique things about form, is it does not last.
This is true.
All form. Okay, so if we talk about the perceived universe, the universe of form, all form will, in time, and that's sort of the interesting concept about this, because each moment of now is a moment. And if you look at them strung together, we have this concept of time. And form comes into being, or comes into existence, I should say, not being, let's use our terms correctly, comes into existence. It goes through some metamorphoses or changes, and then it dissolves back into what it came from.
What is the substance of the universe itself? It's called forth, and it coalesces, and then we interact for a period of time, and then it begins its dissolution.
Right, and actually all form throughout, the ego looks at form in a very static way. The ego looks at form in the way the Madison Avenue does, that you're going to be ever young or ever youthful, or things aren't going to change. And when the ego is suddenly presented with change, gosh, I'm getting wrinkles, I'm getting fat, this thing is falling down, this lightning struck this, the car got into a crash. It feels betrayed. It feels a sense of loss. It feels outraged or angered or in some way injured because the ego's lie, the persistent untruth that it tells itself and everything it's willing to listen, is that form will last forever, and that form identifies that it identifies itself through form. That I'm ever youthful. I'm always smart. I'm the greatest. I'm the winner. I'm right. Right. And Madison Avenue and everything in the world is more than willing to stroke the ego's need for this ever youthful form, or these unchanging forms. Buy this insurance and nothing will ever go wrong with you. Buy this cosmetic or this cream, and do these injections or these drugs, and all these things will preserve your form indefinitely. The constant, Margaret, the constant drumbeat of immortality. People have always talked about, well, I want to be immortal. I want to live forever. I want to live. And what they really mean is they want to be unchanged. They want the moment of now to remain ever in their favor. They say they want to pick a moment in their lives and just say, I want to be that age forever. All these conceits. And they're all born of this ego-based identification with form. I look really good tonight. That's the way I always want to look. And yet we know, the ego knows that it's a lie. It knows that form changes, but it spends a lot of time lying to itself about that, and lying to others about it, and looking for and seeking, and interestingly enough, in relationships and in any kind of casual interaction, those who will agree with its lies. Oh yes, you look good today. You always look good. You're just wonderful. You're the best. You're the best.
Well, they're forming their own little world of self-reflection.
Forming their own little world. Yeah.
Yes. And when you do that, you just want it to always be the reflection that you want.
The reflection, exactly.
So,
Narcissus.
Well, everyone else becomes that reflection.
Or the ego wants it to be.
Well, that's how you wind up convincing yourself that you are the center of your universe, and you get to define this universe of yours. And people get very upset if reality intrudes.
And that's the interesting concept, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Is that there is form, and there's the ego's endless sort of dialogue and internal diatribe about what it is and what form it is. And then there is the isness of now. There is a reality which impinges. The reality is form is ever dissolving. It's ever changing.
Well, the human timeline, the way we're observing it, it seems as if we'd be able to control it. It seems to be going slow enough, and everybody's talking about it, but I don't see it.
Right.
I got up today and I didn't see it.
Right.
Kind of thing.
I don't see the world's falling apart. It looks fine to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay then.
But it's inexorable. It's a drumbeat that continues onward within the time span that you have. Yeah. And it's only when the obvious reflection in the mirror, where things are no longer looking back at you the ideal way you had always hoped they would.
Things are sagging and drooping and creaking and groaning.
You've got wrinkles. And you keep thinking that, well, that's for somebody else. Right. Isn't that for somebody else?
And we can express it, too, in a technical way. There's the concept of entropy. And simply put, the entropy in the universe is always increasing. And what is entropy? The simplest definition of it is it's disorder. Disorder is, it's a scientific term, but what it really means is that stuff falls apart. No, seriously. You can pile your stuff up. You can make a sand castle on the beach, and we're all kind of pretty okay with the fact when the wave comes in, it knocks it down. A child's concept of a sand castle, though, is writ large in many people's concept of their lives. They believe that they've built these indomitable, impenetrable, indestructible castles. And really the castles are themselves, or really what they believe are themselves.
Right. And
these castles, they feel, are going to last forever, or until I want them not to last anymore. It's all and a lot of it's about control. And then the wave comes in. The wave is reality. The wave is saying two things to you. One, you're not indomitable and you're not indestructible. But the second thing is you're not so special. You're not in control. You're not. You're not. You're just as subject to the vicissitudes of life, the randomness of the universe, or the isness of now, as everyone else is. And the ego hates that, because I'm super top secret special. You people don't have the right insurance. You don't have the right cosmetics and drugs, but I do. So that makes me special. And the universe goes, watch this.
Right. Well, it's like watching children making that little sandcastle on the beach. And you have a certain period of time where they're just happy, making towers and decorating with shells and feathers and whatnot, and then making a moat. I love it when they make the moat.
Make the moat.
But the ebb and flow of the tide comes and goes, and it comes a little higher or a little lower, and they get to learn by watching this, realizing that, oh, you know, where is the high tide?
Yeah.
How high up on the beach does it go? They begin to understand that there is a rhythm here that they can't control, but you can do your best. And many times what I found is the kids, they love building and they love taking it apart.
They like watching it be destroyed, and that's
Right.
actually a very healthy thing.
Yeah, the destruction part of it. So they'll choose the part where they'll be able to watch their sandcastle go down.
And we are sandcastles. I want to just throw that out there, and Tole says this too. If you come to a consciousness point, even just a point of acceptance of the isness of now, you can watch your body, your personal sandcastle, slowly erode and ebb and fade, and just be completely okay with it. And why? It's not that you don't care, but you don't identify your creaky old bones and your sagging this and whatever not that doesn't work anymore. The bald head and all this stuff. It doesn't injure your ego because you've let that go. You said, yeah, I will come onto this stage. The world is a stage and we are all but players upon it. I have my role, but it's just a role. I have my costume, my body, but it's just a costume. And for a while I will play the king, and for another while I'll play the fool. And then for a while I'll be helpless, and maybe after that I'll be off the stage. But all those things aren't me. All those things are aspects of what I'm doing, or what is happening to me, or what I'm feeling, but it's not me. It's not I am the king. I am the fool. That's the ego.
I play the fool.
I play the fool.
Or I play the king.
And you're like, that should be good.
Yeah.
I love playing the fool. I love that role. But I'm willing to not play it and let someone else play the fool. I love being the king. I love being on top.
You playing the king.
Playing is right. Playing the role of the king.
It's so easy to catch yourself.
Yeah, the language, the language does inform. I love playing the role of the king, not being the king.
Right. Well, again, it's understanding that these are parts that you play in the reality that you have chosen to interact with. And when you allow yourself that grace, because that's grace.
Yes, exactly.
You can participate without a lot of critical voices ringing in your head. Because you understand that this is a part that you are playing in this particular moment.
Interestingly enough, as a part, the main thing you're trying to do, Mark, in my opinion, is to play it well. In other words, be the best. Be in your being. Be the best. Be the best fool you can be.
Or the best hero.
Or the best hero. If you're
thinker, or the best.
Right. If you're suffering, be the best in that suffering. Accept it. Be there. Be with it. Be with the joys of the current role, or be with the sorrows. But just be in it. Be the best you can be in it.
Well, when you're dealing with the sorrows or the joys, your consciousness has got to be quite there. You have to be very aware of those moments. And you understand that those are the byproduct of playing the role. All right? It's not the same thing. No, what would be the word?
It's not your identity.
Well, even more than that. It's understanding that the process of playing the role produces these experiences
Yes.
that your consciousness becomes very well aware of.
Yes.
And to embrace that, to understand that, okay, this is the result of my interaction with this at this moment. I mean, it's understanding who you are as a whole being, as opposed to identifying with the role.
Well,
and when that happens, you can walk into the experience with a more objective viewpoint, to take in what's there to learn. Because when you open that up to allow in whatever needs to come in, you actually are capable of putting, how do I say this, understanding what your adversary, let's say, you're in a conflict, you open it up so that you can actually see the viewpoint of the other person and see where it's limited or where it may be misinterpreted, or it's a very broad base of consciousness that is needed for that kind of interaction, because it means that you could be wrong. That's baked into the cake for that.
Well, and I like that when we talk about yourself as playing a role, you can expand, as you just said, and see your adversary is just also playing a role in this particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the ego wants to be right, and it wants to see the other as wrong, and they're bad, and I'm good, and they should do this to make me feel better, and all these things, and it's all about I.
Mm-hmm.
And the ego rejects the other. They're less than human. When you open it up and say it's just a role, in this particular moment of now, I've been put into the role of being, the victim of some injustice. And the other is coming to me and oppressing me or doing what. So you have a role. It's like a little play. But yet in that role, you can be the best victim you can be in that not that you want to be, but you have to say, well, in this particular moment, this is the role I've got to play. Can I do anything to get out of the situation? Or do I have to just endure it? Can I, with understanding and kindness, look into the other and see there yet another being, perhaps in an ego unconscious state, that's playing a role? Accept them as the role. Yes, you're in this situation. This is the situation we're both in. One of us is aware that this is just where you are right now. They can feel that. When you greet the aggressor with the expansiveness, you don't say it's okay that what you're doing is good. What you're doing is okay. It's not. It's maybe a bad thing, but you don't treat them as that's their identity and this is my identity and I've got to be right and you've got to be right, and it turns into an unconscious adversarial. No, it's a role. And the other thing I wanted to circle back just before we go too far past it. When you said the results, that's so important. I think we need to reiterate. In these roles, there are results. In a play, there are consequences. This and this happen, and all of a sudden 17 people are dead. Because at the end of every play in Shakespeare, everyone's dead. So, but the results of all those actions, in the play, if you are not conscious, you feel like, yeah, that was my fault. This is bad. This is good. I'm identifying with the results as though I could have controlled them. No, sometimes it's Deus ex machina. It's the environment. It's the plane is late and the weather is bad and this one is rude and someone steps on my toe and you can go completely off into everybody's out to get me and fill in all these spaces and make it into a gigantic ego rage. Instead, you just say, There's nothing I can do about this. I have to accept the experience and the results as the isness of now. Yeah, I'm not comfortable, but nobody is right now. The people behind the counter are annoyed and upset because they'd like to not have me or anybody else around here unhappy, and the weather is doing what the weather is doing. The plane had a mechanical failure. All these things. The ego wants to just turn that into a giant, look at me, I'm important. Don't you understand that I've got places to be? But those results and the circumstances are not you.
Right. Well, it's very interesting because there are a number of cultures that teach that you should not look to be offended. In other words, just avoid that. Make no assumption on the person's motive.
Isn't that the crux of being offended, is you assume the other's motive was to offend?
Yeah, well, you're interpreting everything in terms of what you think is part of the offense. And if you can step away from that and say, I choose not to be offended, what is actually going on? Because when you do that, you begin to see all the filters that you were using to interpret an offense. I know the Navajo basically teach that. They have, I forgot the name of it, but you are not to take offense or indulge in interpreting things that will make you feel vengeful.
Yeah.
And that is one of their disciplines. As we said before, in Tibetan Buddhism or Buddhism, you're not supposed to grasp at these things, these forms that lock you in. So interpreting something so that you are offended is limiting and hooking your consciousness.
It's allowing it to hook you too. This is the Navajo discipline is beautiful, and the discipline of forgiveness is another one. When somebody if you are wronged, you can be wronged. People can do things consciously or unconsciously, mostly unconsciously, which are wrong, which are prima facie wrong. They take things. They injure.
A deliberate.
Yes. Deliberate.
A deliberate act to make you angry or hurt you in some way. Yes.
And yet, using that as, turning yourself into an absorber of that negative energy, that offense, putting it into a story, then even in some ways encapsulating the offense and giving it a life of its own, making it a pain body or part of the pain body, letting it live its own life, sapping energy from you the being, because every time you see that person or think about them, you'll have to remember all the offenses and remember everything they did, and you're never, ever, ever, ever going to forgive them. Ever. You're going to hold till they'll be dead and gone 50 years, and you're still like, I remember that time. They're living rent-free in your head, but they're living on your essence. And in fact, you have given a portion of your precious consciousness and your precious energy,
your life force,
to this offense, this parasite. So what does forgiveness do? Forgiveness, you first don't take offense. The Navajo are much more advanced. Don't take offense to begin with. But if you have taken offense, releasing it is giving yourself a favor. It's doing yourself a favor. Yes, the wrong still happened. They were still wrong. But keeping that within you is a cancer. It is like a constantly turning knife in a wound. You're putting yourself through suffering and pain because no one else is doing it to you anymore. The offense was 20 years ago. You're still in pain. Why? Because you're doing it to you. So
Right.
Forgiveness is for your own sake, and this is letting go of an ego form, the pain body, which is holding on to that and using your present moment of now and all the energy in it to animate that dead thing.
Right. Right.
Let the dead bury their dead, right?
Yeah, Jesus was big on forgiveness.
Big on forgiveness. And
it was amazing on his ability to forgive even when they were killing him.
Yeah.
I personally, I can't even wrap my head around that. How can you forgive them while they're killing you? And asking God not to hold it against them. It's like, okay, I have a lot to learn, Lord.
But you said what you said about the Navajo though is very much like the "Is that so?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, the little Japanese monk who, in essence, you're accused. You're not only being told that you're the bad one, but that you are responsible and that you've offended me and you wronged me, and now you have to make up for it. And all this is pushed in your face without any warning, and the ego's instantaneous reaction is to rise up in anger and say, no, you're wrong, and I don't, and you did this and that. And instead, you've taken offense, you put it all into the pain body, you cause suffering all around in that way, but instead, the Navajo and the little monk would say, don't take any offense, you just say, is that so?
Right.
And the Navajo would say, just, okay, not going to be offended about it.
Yeah, it's just acknowledging at that point. If you decide not to take offense, you acknowledge the fact that there may have been a misinterpretation of something. And that even then you go a step further and you find out, well, no, that was deliberate. It's like, well, you're not worth my effort.
Or my life force.
Exactly. You are keeping yourself clean at that point. Exactly. Because right at that moment, you have the opportunity to become engaged,
hooked
into this conflict, where you're like, okay, I'm angry, you meant it to do on purpose, or like, no, I see what's happening here. And the truth is, conflict will not exist unless you feed it.
Yeah.
You need to have two people in order to have that conflict. So to diffuse it, you have the power to diffuse it.
And in some ways, the ego wants you to rise up and be in anger because it wants to be right. The is that so is you're also submitting to the moment of now. You say, well, I accept that you feel this way. I accept that you feel I should do something about it. You even shove, in this case with the little monk, a child, an infant into his arms and say, this is your responsibility, you take care of it. And the ego would say, no, I'm not going to throw this child in the dust. I don't care. I don't want to make it a whole thing. No, the little monk says, okay, well, the child did nothing. I know I did nothing, but I'm not going to let this child lie in the dust because you have this ego story. He takes the child, feeds the child, and lets his, the is that so is not saying, yeah, I'm guilty. I agree with you. The is that so is just saying, well, the actual reality of this thing is not known by you, and it's not known by me. I know I didn't do anything wrong, but I know you think I did. I know there's an innocent here, something which has no stake in the game.
No, but it's understanding that the innocent is the most important point.
Exactly.
At that moment in time.
But then submitting to this burden, because it is one, it's just saying, well, now for this, in this role, I am suddenly put in the position of having to be a caregiver to an innocent. This is the new role. You accept the isness of now. You say, okay, I'm going to take care of this infant, and then the events of what you think will change.
Right.
And that's the other thing we can always count on. It will change. And one of the other things we can count on is at the bottom of the hour we have to go to a commercial break. So let's do that, go into the isness of now, and we'll come back on the other side and talk more about form.
Batman Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Moonstones and murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some moonstones and murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lyons is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side, as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is William B. Davis, the actor who plays the Smoking Man, or did play the Smoking Man on The X-Files. I'm also a writer, director, producer, and I am delighted to tell you that you are listening to the ArtistFirst radio network.
Listening to the soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. Let's get back to your hosts, Margaret and Michael Lyons.
Thank you, Scott. And we are back.
We are back. Like we never left.
Almost.
You know, if you don't mind, maybe we'll start off with our quote from Tolle, but we are talking tonight about form, and that our true nature is, we've been kind of going around this, but our true nature is not form. Our true nature is formless. And Tolle has a little thought about that, so let's throw that into the mix.
All righty. Stillness is the only thing in this world that has no form. But then, it's not really a thing. And it's not of this world. Tolle.
And we are not of this world. And you know, that's been said in so many ways. You know, be in the world but not of the world is one of the ways of putting it. But in fact, here's Tolle's. I'll just encapsulate it. Tolle's. We are inhabiting form for a period of time. But form, you know, if you were truly form, if you were truly that was what you were, then every instant that you were in this world would be a terrible trial, because you're constantly being dissolved. You're constantly changing. The identity of you would be a chaotic mess, because it is only through our being that we can watch the dissolution of form. Everything around us changes and slowly disappears, and yet not be touched by it. Our true beings are completely untouched by this universe of chaotic, ever-changing form. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of thing that slides by people. They go, oh yeah, everything's just fine. No, everything is a disaster all the time. Every femtosecond of the universe is a disaster. If we were part of that, you know, we would be no more than a chaotic fragment of a chaotic collection of fragments that we would call the universe. No, we sit here very copacetically and calmly and go, wow, look at all that going by. Why? Because we're not of it. We're not really form.
Well, it's understanding that when you, as a consciousness, are identifying, saying that I am X, Y, or Z, I am angry, I am happy, I am intelligent, I am old. All these things are form. And there's a part of you that understands that what you actually are is eternal. It doesn't change. So I think that sets up a tension inside of your soul, because the ego's trying to convince that part of you that, you know, well, this is what's real, this is what's real. But there's the aspect of you that understands that your I am presence is eternal. And that conflict sets up who is going to dominate. And it all stems back to what you happen to choose in that moment to believe.
Like what you said before, Mark. The ego has to constantly war with, and talk to itself, and constantly run as fast as it can to keep up the illusion that it is what it says it is to itself and to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's constantly, offended or destroyed or in some way shocked when form doesn't work out.
Well, I honestly believe that it's almost set up that way deliberately. Because ego doesn't have anything to draw attention to itself unless there is a problem.
Yes, true.
And the minute that you let go of the problems, you fall naturally back into your wholeness, your I am, the being state.
The greater I.
Yes. And with ego, the minute you understand that it does need something to present as a conflict or a problem or
to be offended at.
Well, a boundary almost.
Yes.
This is my boundary problem right here.
Yes, boundaries are very important to the ego. Boundaries of form, boundaries of, laws, boundaries of what I own and what someone else doesn't own. I mean, and you can do all those things, but the ego, it identifies with them. You can have stuff, but you don't identify.
Well, to understand one's boundaries is more than just, well, here's my fence line.
Yeah.
Okay, it's understanding who you happen to be and how your reaction has come up from an experience and allowing space so that you can reflect, self-reflect, to understand, well, what are these nuances that I'm seeing? How did this feeling that I'm having right now come about? Is it a result of the conflict or process that I happen to be participating in? And what is the, what's the word I'm looking for? What is it that my heart is choosing as a foundational base on this experience? In other words, I love deeply, and I love my child deeply, but this process, that we were trying to do to save him, failed. Where do we go next? Do you basically drop in that moment and start lamenting? Or do you despair? Or do you turn to your child and just want to beg forgiveness because you can't save him? Or do you create a whole different world for him, pretending that he or she doesn't understand what's going on, and let's have a tea party? It's amazing the myriad of responses that will rise up in you. And what is it that you happen to be choosing in this moment? If it's love, then you understand that life is important, and the other's life is far more important than your own, because you are capable of doing a certain amount, and the other is capable of doing another amount. But your spirit, both spirits, must come together and walk the path together. You make your decision based on that deep heart relationship. I don't know if it makes any sense to people.
Well, no, I think but again, this is to say that for just take that example, I am my illness.
Right.
I am sick. I am going to, have this problem or this, is to let the ego run that. But to be in the experience of the isness of now, yes, this is my current reality. I have to walk in it. We have to
walk
two
it.
beings. The heart again sees true. The heart is connected to much more closely connected to the being state. And I wanted to bring back, to quote Tolle's quote, the stillness is what you were talking about before, the spaciousness to allow this to come up into. So your life, your being, your state of where you are in form changes. It changes radically and drastically, all from one day to the next. I'm in this, what I see as my form right now. I'm doing what I do as a child or whatever, and the next day I'm diagnosed with a life-threatening disease. So in those two states, your ego can rail from I'm completely happy and everything's wonderful to I'm terrible and everything's awful and I am sick. I wasn't, and someone's fault and let's pretend, all the things you just said, go off into all these fantasies or try to cope in these ways. Yet none of those are going to matter. And in truth, if you were in stillness or in spaciousness, the role you were playing the moment before this change is just changed to a different role. The being has stayed the same. The stillness, the spaciousness, which allows for this change without identification, just saying, here's the new experiences. And when you go into it that way, and I'm not saying it's easy, but when you go into that way, these experiences, which are just your current situation that your being is in, are what you're here to learn, what you're here to observe, what you're here to go through. They aren't ego destruction. They're realization of your form's path. This one, through this particular isness of now, this is where you are. You're not special. No one picked you out to suffer. No one picked you out for joy either. You're in the moment of now because in this form, in this universe, your eternal peace is going through what it's going through. Your form is dissolving slightly more rapidly than someone else's. Or it might be the other way around. Both are fine. In the stillness, in the being, which has no form, which is not really a thing, and it's not of this world. That's you. You are the stillness. You are the consciousness. You are the being. You're not part of all this. Yeah, you're here. Yes, it affects you. Yes, all these things happen. But they happen as experience, not as identity. And that which is you carries on through. You carry on through all the things that happen to you. If you don't identify an ego, you see them as saying, it's just another thing that's happening. Another change. Another metamorphosis of form. It doesn't always have to be dissolution. It doesn't have to always be pain. It's just metamorphosis. I grew up a little bit today. I had a cookie today. That's a new thing of form. But it's not who you are.
You are not the cookie.
It would be nice, but no. That's very Zen, though. You are the cookie.
Now, stillness is the tool, usually, to allow your consciousness to begin to establish itself outside of ego.
Right. And you said always, Mom, that you still contain an ego. The ego is still there, but it's in its place.
Right. Well, it's understanding that there's a balance point to your being state.
Yes.
And you have to reach the point of wanting to come to balance. Otherwise, you're just going to be swinging back and forth on that pendulum of experience and emotion. You have to come to the end of that. You have to really realize that, I've tried both ends and it's not working.
I mean, and there's other, the Buddhists have that exercise of, trying to be in stillness, and then a thought will arise. And the image that's given often is that, it's like a marble. It drops onto the table, and it tries to get you to grasp it, to engage it. It's a bright, glittery, shiny thing. And in stillness, you see these drops, these marbles, call them whatever you wish. And the training is, don't grasp it. Just watch it, observe it. In your stillness, you say, here comes a thought. Don't try to reject the thought. Don't try to tell the thought, go away, because that's just more thought.
No.
Don't engage even in rejection. Just say,
there it is.
There's the thought. And the thought will come in, and it will say, you really ought to pay that water bill. And it's just rolling along. The water bill's still not paid. Water bill? And it falls off.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, yep. And the next one comes in. I really like the color yellow. Yellow is my favorite color. And then, and the ego wants to say, yes, I love yellow. No, I hate yellow. Damn the water bill. But this is, it's very much trying to do that. And when you see it, you see that the ego is dropping these little drops of thought. The emotions are rising up, trying to give them a place to nest in and make ripples. And the consciousness, which contains it all, can just very succinctly be in stillness, watching these things happen. And once you've trained that, every situation, a diagnosis of a dire disease, or just something happens, lightning strikes, a hurricane hits, all these things are happening. Form is dissolving all the way. You have to watch the form dissolve. Watch yourself go. It's not that you let yourself go. You just don't.
You're observing.
You're observing your form change. You observed yourself grow up. You observed yourself be, whatever.
That's an interesting thought. Because most people don't take that wholeness into account. You have watched yourself grow from an infant to an adult. And you continue from an adult back into a helpless form.
Yes.
That whole process, just allowing yourself to say, wait, I have observed myself do that. It's been decades like this. And to really begin to understand, that begins to put things in place. It's like, wait a minute. Wow, I have observed myself. And what have I chosen as an outcome to all these little forks in the road? What decisions have I made that allowed me to walk down this particular path? It's really fascinating once you do that, because your observation has to be broad enough to begin to recall moments through your childhood, through your, if you can really recall any moments in babyhood, that's a hard one.
Some do, but in fact, the ego will say, oh, it was this, I could have done that, I could have had this house, I could have, the ego looks through the past looking for more moments of identity, more moments of regret. The being in observation behind it all, or around it all, can say, oh, this is what brought me to this moment of now. Not only my actions, but my, as you just said, my forks in the road. I chose this path over that. And you have to say to yourself, where I am right now is somewhat of my doing, somewhat not. You didn't control every vicissitude of life to get where you are, but here you are. And the role, if you've observed yourself grow, you can know that the role can change really at any moment.
Right.
So what does that mean? Enjoy now.
Mm-hmm.
Be now. Because now, by its very nature, will change. Form, by its very nature, will change. It will dissolve. It will go back into the nothingness from which it came. And yet you, the stillness, you, the consciousness, you, the being, do not do those things. You carry on throughout the whole being watched yourself grow up. You know you're the same as you were then. You've got more power, you've got more ability to do things, skills perhaps, whatever, or maybe less now after, as Margaret said, you go on and you start to become this and less and less, but still the being carries. If you look into the eyes of the nonagarian lying in a bed, perhaps bedridden and unable, and engage that soul, it's the same eyes, the identity, the true identity that you recognized when that person was, a moment old out of the womb and looking up around. That same engagement of being is because it hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. You're still you throughout it all. If you had really changed, then you would look at your child self and say, God, I don't even recognize that thing. It doesn't look anything like me. It's fat. Anyway, we know what we've come to the end of, though, and the being state of the isness of now is...
We have reached the end of our show.
But we're going to be okay with it.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So, I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for listening.